Today is our second exercise in the strength training for runners program, the deadlift. Pound for pound, one of the best exercises that you can do for building strength and getting a total body workout to help with your running efficiency, your form, and just your ability to stay injury free. But this is a great exercise that most people shy away from, either from fear of getting hurt, not knowing how to do it, or some are just intimidated. The deadlift is a big movement. It's a challenging movement, and typically when you go into a normal gym, you see some person over in the corner pulling up 3 or 4 plates on each side, and that's just not how we typically train as a runner. So we're going to go over the correct way to do that, what you want to focus on, some of the do's and don'ts, and try to encourage you to incorporate deadlifting into your strength training routine. The first thing that you have to understand about the deadlift is there's a lot of movement through the hips. It's what we call a hip hinge. So with that, we're starting the movement and ending the movement by pushing the hips back before we bend the back or we bend the knees forward. Because if we go knees first, we end up in a bad position, and if we're sliding the bar down, that's going to be a problem. So the hips have to go back, allowing the knees to bend without translating forward, so that bar just goes straight down. The other thing we don't want to do is have an overextended back or an overarched back. That sets us up for a risk for injury, and we want to try to avoid that. So working on the hip hinge, that hip back, hip forward movement, is where we want to start with the deadlift. The way we typically start this for patients that are having pain here or having to struggle here is the tall kneeling hip hinge. Because what this allows us to do is push the hips back, sit down on your heels. What we don't want to see is people staying really upright and going back, or really hunching forward as they do that. We want to keep a nice straight line of the spine as the hips go back to the heels, and then push the hips forward and come back up. Once you have good control of that, we want to go to a standing hip hinge. What I encourage people to do is get a kettlebell that you can tolerate well. This one's only 45 pounds, but somewhere between 30 and 60 pounds is going to be good for most. But what we want to work on is pulling that from the ground while working on our hip hinge. Hips back, hips forward. So we're going to square up to this kettlebell, feet a little bit wider than our shoulders, and I'm going to take my hands straight down. And by pushing my hips back, I'm going to go straight towards the kettlebell, and then initiate the movement back up by pushing my hips forward. The last part of the deadlift movement is getting to the bar. Typically, when you're going to be at a deadlift station and you have weights on the bar, it's going to start from right about here. But the same thing applies. We're going to push our hips back, initiate the movement by pushing our hips forward. So when we get down to our starting position, I'm going to get the bar on the outside of my knees. So this is my starting position. I want to tuck my shoulder blades down and back, and then initiate that movement of my hips coming forward. So the line of the bar, we want to try to keep that as close to us as possible while as straight as possible. So as I go down, I'm going to push my hips back. The bar is going to go straight down. And I'm going to push my hips forward. And the bar is going to come straight back up, trying to hold this bar as close to me as possible. The ways that we incorporate deadlifting into a runner's program. One way would be if you're in a base building phase where you're just doing mileage, you're not doing anything high intensity, you're not doing 15, 18 miles on the weekend. I would incorporate this early in the week, maybe 3 sets of 10 if you're still working on your form, or 5 sets of 5 if you're really trying to build that strength. But the way we want to start this is just form. Working on that hip hinge, working on keeping the bar close, getting that straight line up and down, keeping it safe, allowing your body to adapt.